So I do have a story before you go. In the late 1800s, there was these two brothers, and they lived in Boston, Massachusetts. And as they grew up, their father was a very successful butcher in Boston. And as they grew, they realized that, hey, they didn't want to be butchers. They didn't want to go into that same line of work. Their father was disappointed, but he understood. And then when he passed away, and so what they did was they sold his butcher shop because the younger brother had been fascinated by the tales of pirates in the 1700s and the 1600s, and he was fascinated by the idea of finding treasure. And he wanted to be a treasure hunter. And so he convinced his older brother, neither one of us want to be a butcher. Let's sell the butcher shop. Take the money, we'll go down to the Caribbean, and we will be treasure hunters. We will find treasure, and we will become rich, and we will have a great life. And because he'd been studying, and he knew that there was ship's logs, and he knew where some pieces were, where they might find some stuff. And so they did it. They sold the very successful butcher shop, took the money, went to the Caribbean, started looking for treasure. Months go by. They find nothing. Another couple of months go by, and they find a small treasure, just as they were about to give up. It's just enough to pay off some of their debt that they had incurred from using up their money, and to get them going again. At this point, the younger brother said, hey, I've got an idea. Let's split this money. Let's split this treasure, this little one that we found, and let's each go our own way. Because what we've been doing is we've been doing one thing each time, you and I both together. If we're separate, we can follow different rumors. We can follow different paths. And one of us we'll double our efforts. We'll find it. The promise we'll make is if we find a treasure, that we'll promise that we'll tell the other one and we'll come and split it. And the older brother said, sure, yeah, let's do that. And so they split up. Months and months and months go by. The older brother has found nothing. He's got very little money left, and he starts saying to himself, why am I doing this? I've wasted my father's inheritance that we got from selling that butcher shop. We found a little treasure, and we got nothing out of it. I've got nothing out of it. And so what he did, he happened to be on an island, and he saw that there was a farm that was like a sugar cane that was in disrepair, and the owner was selling the land very cheap for this sugarcane plantation. And so what he did, the older brother said, you know what? I'm just going to buy this sugar cane plantation. And so he buys it. And then over years and years, he builds and he works at it, and he has problems and pests and bugs and bad crops and good crops, but he keeps at it, and he works, and then he has enough money. He buys the farm that was next to his, so now he's doubled it. And then over a few more years, he buys another farm, so now he's got a gigantic sugarcane plantation on this island, and he's doing great. Over those years, his brother was searching and was desperate for treasure. And every once in a while, he'd find like a little bit, just enough to keep him going. So it was almost like this addiction. He kept going after more and more and more. He was never getting anything. And finally, he ran out of money. He ran out of time. He was in deep debt to people who were now threatening him. It wasn't like today where if we get into debt, we can declare bankruptcy. His life was threatened. So what he ended up with was he ended up in the gutter as a drunk. And he was just going around wherever he could go to beg for food, beg for alcohol, beg for a few coins. And he was a complete derelict. Well, he hitched a ride on a ship for a little bit of money, and he got to this island, and he was there, and he was dirty and stinky, and his clothes were falling off of him. And someone came by and said, "Oh, you look like You look like somebody I've seen before. Shut up, get out of here. Okay. And then somebody had some pity on him, gave him a little bit of money. So he was in a bar drinking, and someone sat down next to him. I was like, you're gross, what are you doing here? He said, I was looking for some treasure. My brother, I don't know whatever happened to him. I just need some money. And the guy next to him said, oh, hey, you know what? There's this huge sugarcane plantation about 5 miles down the road. Maybe they'll give you a little job. And so he's like, okay. So he'd given up on life by this time. And so he walked 5 miles down the road, and here's this gigantic mansion, beautiful home. He comes up to it, and they're not wanting to let him in. And he's like, I'm just looking for a job. And they said, well, maybe the owner, but we're not going to give you a job. And he's like, please. And they said, well, we'll ask the owner. So they get the owner, and here comes out, and it's his brother. And he's so angry. He's like, you found a treasure. You promised you would tell me. I've been years and years as people wanting to kill me. And here I am. Look at me, destitute. And you're rich. Why didn't you tell me? He said, I didn't find the treasure. He's like, well, then where did you get all this? He said, I invested, and through work over years and years, I built this. I built my treasure. I didn't just go find it. So for you guys, as you go forward in life, a lot of you want to do your own business. I would really encourage you, don't get into a place where you are compelled to follow a fake dream. Instead, put down some roots, find your own treasure, and build it. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Let me know if you need anything. There's